Luard is apparently up to its old tricks, and ancient dragons make their grandiose return to Vanguard, and Eradicators are joining the fray on Vanguard 0. This is Phantom Dragon Aeon. Stand up! Vanguard! Hey Cardfighters, welcome back to another Cardfight update, and today we've got a very unexpected, exciting day because we got a lot of card reveals. We got some big card reveals for the upcoming V-BT10 Phantom Dragon Aeon, or Aeon, how you want to pronounce that, because we've got some cards for Shadow Paladin, which gives us a glimpse of what Luard might do in Standard, and it can even work with Premium, so to speak. But surprisingly, we've got the return of an old archetype, which now is going to be rebranded and revamped into something interesting, unique, and potentially something very powerful. But on top of that, we also got some new exciting reveals for Vanguard 0, as we've got some new Gold Paladin Liberator cards, as well as the favorite return of Eradicators for Narukami. That strikes a little bit close home, because this was some cards of the first trial deck that I owned for Vanguard itself. Now, with that introduction out of the way, let's jump straight into the cards, because we've got a lot of cards to go over in this video. We're going to start off with the new Shadow Paladin cards, because we got 2 new cards as well as 2 extra additions, which are nice inclusion for Shadow Paladin. And we're going to start off with some great ones, which also hints to the new playstyle for Shadow Paladin, as we've got Knight of Strict Order Suels, and she has the following ability: continues a rearguard circle. If you have 5 or more grade 1 rearguards, this unit gets power plus 15k. So this can be a 20k unit, that can be a booster or attacker, and because she's a 5k base, means she can be searched out with Nemain, and Nemain also being a grade 1 facilitates this playstyle or the mechanic behind this grade 1. And because we see that this grade 1 works with more grade 1s, it led us to believe that Luard is going to be a grade 1 variant of what Ariel the Divine Knight Altmal is for Royal Paladin with grade 2s. So who knows, Luard might take that playstyle, and incidentally this does synergize with the premium playstyle of Luard, as that also focuses around grade 1s. Now, the second grade 1 support card that we've got is Hardship Sage Dakron, and its ability is continuous rearguard circle. If you have a grade 3 or greater Vanguard, all of your front row grade 1 units get intercept. So once again, a grade 1 that supports a grade 1 field, and now it allows you to use those grade 1 for interceptors, which basically allows you to get the same shield value as you would have with grade 2s that could potentially intercept if they were in the front row. But incidentally, by having that with grade 1s, that actually gives you more shield value, as they naturally have 10k shield instead of 5k shield. How good it is too early to say, as same with the previous grade 1, because we don't know how good the other grade 1 support cards are going to be, how the other grade 1s are going to be, as well as how good Luard is going to be, if this is going to synergize with Luard, which most likely will, because the other VR is Phantom Blaster, Phantom Blaster Overlord, and that most likely will just play the generic retire field thing that is typical of Shadow Paladin. Now, of course, we also got 2 extra cards revealed alongside these 2 cards, and we got the new starter, which is Drag Prince Root, which is actually a pretty neat artwork, if I'm gonna be honest, but it's just a generic starter. And besides that, we also got the new draw trigger, which is going to be the female Luard, which is Drag Wizard Bapt, which is nice that we also got this reintroduced in the V series. So yeah, these are the new Shadow Paladin cards, and it shows an interesting direction for Shadow Paladin, which most likely is going to be the new Luard deck that's going to come out, Phantom Dragon Aeon or Aeon. Now, of course, these weren't the only reveals, because the actual main reveals of today were the bulk Tachikaze cards. And interesting enough, these Tachikaze cards are all Ancient Dragons. So the Ancient Dragon archetype is going to return to Vanguard, which is actually a big surprise. But interesting enough, these cards aren't going to be only named Ancient Dragon. Their archetype name is going to be True ancient dragons. And all these true ancient dragons share one common trait besides their name archetype. They have a secondary skill which is all identical, which you can see on this grade 1, which is auto on Vanguard or Rigger Circle. Once per turn, when your drive check reveals a front trigger, you may have this unit get a critical +1 for that turn. So basically, it's somewhat in the same ballpark that we have seen with the God Hand Dragon deck, but unlike that deck basically ups the power percentage of a front trigger with X amount of power, and it only works with 3 specific cards, grade 1, the grade 2, and the grade 3 God Hand Dragon itself, and that the other support cards maybe do something if you drive check a front trigger. This archetype basically turns a front trigger into a front critical trigger as well as a front trigger, because all of these true ancient dragons have this skill. So if you rip a front trigger in your drive check, then potentially all of your units are going to get an additional critical. This can be very devastating if this archetype has a good enough resource engine going on that you can have a good card advantage, because you need to flood the board and you need to have some control. So let's go over these cards to have a better understanding how good this true ancient dragon archetype could be. And as you can see here, this is the first card that we're going to talk about, this grade 1, which is true ancient dragon Albartal. And Albartal has the ability continues to Vanguard or Rigger Circle. During a turn, if you have an Ancient Dragon Vanguard, this unit gets power plus 5k. So it's a solid 13k attacker if it's your Vanguard, because the skill will still activate. And in a true Ancient Dragon deck, then you most likely will always have a true Ancient Dragon Vanguard, so it can be a solid 13k beater to the side, or booster if you want to boost it. So that's actually pretty nice. And this is a trend we're going to see with the other Ancient Dragons, where they can basically pump out power quite consistently, so they're not dependent on the front triggers for power themselves, unlike God Hand Dragon, but the front triggers themselves just facilitates the extra added pressure with the potential crit pressure on all your attacks. Then next up we've got a grade 2, which is true Ancient Dragon Heftier Sirocco. And Heftier Sirocco has the following ability: continues a Rigger Circle. If it's on an additional Rigger Circle, aka the Axle Circle, this unit cannot be retired by the effects of your opponent's cards and get power plus 5k. It can still be chosen. So it can still be chosen for a specific effect, so if you need to target them, but it cannot be retired by effects of your opponent's side. So this is similar to Promised Daughter, that if you're up against Shadow Paladin, you can still target it for retire effects, but then it will just not retire. Keep in mind, it can still die of your own effects. And seeing as Tachikaze has skills that retires its own units, it's still prone to that. So don't make that mistake where you're going to target it with your own skills and then think it's not going to retire. It is still going to retire. It's just immune by retire of your opponent's effects. Now, this being on an additional circle means it's already going to get a plus 5k power. Then with its skills, another plus 5k power. So this can be a solid 19k or 24k beater on an actual one. And then also having a pseudo resist effect or some control or some stickiness to the board, where it's somewhat in the same power level as a early sweeper Acrecanto. So this is actually a pretty good solid support grade 2 card that then also can potentially swing in with some added crit pressure because of its generic archetype secondary skill. Now we also got another grade 1, which is true Ancient Dragon Petrafeet, and its ability is auto Vanguard or Rigger Circle. When it attacks or on an attack it boosted hits a Vanguard, look at the top 7 cards of your deck, call up to 1 card with Ancient Dragon in its card name from among them to the Rigger Circle as rest, then shuffle your deck. So this is somewhat of an extra way of getting card advantage. It's not for multitasking because you call the cards in rest, but it's an excellent way to set up your board for future play. So you can call something to the back row if you want to protect it, or if it's just a grade 2 or grade 3 and you don't mind it being attacked into, you can call it to the front row and just set it up potentially for next turn. So this is actually pretty nice because it doesn't cost you any resources. So if you can put this thing behind your Vanguard on turn 1 and keep pressuring with the Vanguard on the hit effect or the on hit pressure, then that can give you a lot of value over the course of a single game. So this is actually a pretty solid card for this particular archetype that relies on card advantage to accelerate its main game plan of using your front triggers to apply a lot of pressure with the added crits. Now the following card is yet again another grade 2, so we have 2 grade 1s and 2 grade 2s. As here we have this grade 2 true Ancient Dragon Aurelneros, and its unique ability is auto on Vanguard or Rigger Circle. when placed from hand, cost counter +1 to look at the top 3 cards of your deck, call up to 1 card with Ancient Dragon from among them to the rearguard circle, and put the rest on the bottom of your deck in any order. So this is actually a card advantage card, which is really good because the chance of you actually hitting an Ancient Dragon in the top 3 is quite likely, as currently we have 2 grade 1s, 2 grade 2s, and even 2 grade 3s, which 1 is definitely a good rearguard unit. So we got some really solid targets here, and the consistency behind this skill is actually pretty decent so far, and there might be even a chance that we get a 3rd grade 1 or a 3rd grade 2 with future support for this particular set. So this is actually a really good card, and because of this card the archetype looks a lot better, as we now have some solid card advantage going on here. Now that were the support cards in the grade 1 and grade 2 department. Let's take a look at the grade 3s, as we've got 2 grade 3s, 1 really good supporter card, and 1 is going to be the main boss unit for this deck. And the supporting card is going to be True Ancient Dragon Barrel Tops, and its unique ability is auto Vanguard the rearguard circle. When placed, if you have an Ancient Dragon Vanguard, cost counter +1 to draw 1, and this unit gets power +5k until the end of turn. So this is basically the same amount of advantage that we have with the grade 2, only you will always get the card. But on top of that, it also gets an additional 5k power, so it can generate a solid beater on its own, and on an Axel Circle can be a good 22k number. Also keep in mind, all these numbers will also potentially get an additional 10k off the front trigger, so there are a lot of power numbers you could potentially generate here. So overall, this is a really solid card advantage, and if you hit this card off of the grade 2, then you can potentially chain its unplace effect to get another draw if you have the counterblast to spare. Let's take a look at the main grade 3 of this archetype, which is also going to be the main triple R, which is True Ancient Dragon Bladderomeos, and its unique ability is act on Vanguard Circle. Once per turn, cost retire 1 rearguard, so this can be any type of rearguard, it doesn't have to be a True Ancient Dragon, to choose one of your opponent's rearguards, retire it, then search your deck for up to 1 card with Ancient Dragon in its card name, call to the rearguard circle, shuffle your deck, and that unit gains power +5k until the end of turn. So this card basically allows you to trade 1 for 1 with your opponent, but then you get that card back in a archetype specific card, and it gains an additional power. And it doesn't cost you any resources, because it doesn't cost you counterblast, it doesn't cost you soul blast, and you refund the unit that you retire. So that's actually really good here, because that means you can allow you to set up the board with actual Ancient Dragons, and because this card states Ancient Dragons and not True Ancient Dragons in premium, you could potentially combine it with the old Ancient Dragons cards if there are some old cards that actually work with this engine. I'm not sure if that's the case because I'm not familiar with Ancient Dragons, but there is at least that aspect of this card. Overall, this is really good because the fact that this card can retire any type of unit allows you to play generic grade 1s and grade 2s in those open slots, as we currently only have 2 grade 1s and 2 grade 2s, and those cards could help you with card advantage or just extra control options. And if those cards have specific skills, like when they get retired you can do something, then that can chain off of this effect. Because we have the grade 1, I think, Skyptera, that when it gets retired you can counter +1 and return to hand. You can combine it with this card to keep getting that grade 1 back to hand, as so far we only have 2 cards that uses counterblast in some specific way. If we have a card that needs a soul blast for its effect, you can use that, because we currently don't use soul at all. So this archetype looks to be very solid, and in my honest opinion does the thing that God Hand Dragon tried to do, but a bit better, because it doesn't necessarily need the front trigger to get the actual pressure in numbers, because this archetype can already build numbers. But it actually uses that front trigger to then distribute crits to those attacks as well, to potentially come in swinging hard. Because unlike God Hand Dragon, you cannot really say, oh yeah, even if he gets front, it's only going to be 1 damage, because it's all just singular damage. With this archetype, you need to keep in mind, yes, they might get a front trigger, but if they get that front trigger, then it also means that attack would suddenly get double crit. Sadly, it's all once per turn, so if you rip out double front, it doesn't get double critical. All those units will only get 1 additional critical. And I'd say sadly, but I think that's actually a good thing, otherwise this could be way too broken, because unlike God Hand Dragon, this deck actually has a card advantage engine, and that is really huge. So I'm very curious of what these cards are going to do in the future and how good they are going to be with the incorporated edition of the new cards for Tachikaze, because this is just the beginning of the set reveal, so who knows how far this archetype could go. Now, of course, we also got some new Vanguard Zero news, and let's go over the new revealed card for the upcoming set in JP before we go into some global news. So, first off, we've got some new Liberator cards, and the first one I want to talk about is this great one, Fast Chase Liberator Joseph, and Joseph's ability is Rearguard Circle when placed from deck. If your Vanguard is a Liberator, Soul Blast 1 to draw a card. So this is somewhat similar to the already present Din Drain, but I believe Din Drain is Soul Blast 2. So this is effectively cheaper, but you need to have Liberator as your Vanguard. Luckily, the new archetype for Gold Paladin is going to be Liberator focused, so that would not be any issue for you. So this is just a better card, and I believe this also has a higher base power than Din Drain. So overall, this is just a better card in all aspects. Now, the second new Liberator card that we've got is Liberator Flute Escrat, and its abilities auto and Vanguard to Rearguard Circle. When this unit attack hits a Vanguard, if your Vanguard is a Liberator, counter plus 1 to call the top card of your deck. So this is somewhat similar to Vivian, only it's Liberator restrictive, but I think also is a bit cheaper because I thought Vivian is a counter plus Soul Blast, but I'm not sure on that part. But overall, it's just to allow you to facilitate multi-attacks or potentially set up interceptors. It's probably not of the greatest cards currently in Zero because of the whole damage system where multi-attacking is not that favored, but if we get better booster support for Liberators or some other kinds of aspect, then this skill could actually be really solid. But overall, I don't think it's that crazy of a card, but I could be wrong here. Now, of course, the main bulk of the cards for Zero that were revealed today were the new Eradicators for Narukami, and I say new because they are new in Zero, old in the official TCG. And the first card that we've got is this new starter, which is Ambush Dragon Eradicator Linshu. And its ability is very similar. It of course has a Forerunner skill, but its unique skill is on a Rearguard Circle. When the attack by an Eradicator this unit boosted hits a Vanguard, counter plus 1 and put this unit into your soul to retire one of your opponent's rearguards. So this is essentially the exact same skill as the starter that most Narukami decks are using that can also snipe something. The only difference is that it's now Eradicator restricted, but the upside to it is that you can retire any card. It doesn't have to be a low graded unit, so it's somewhat more flexible, but if it's that much better, I'm not sure, but in an Eradicator deck, the restriction is not really a restriction, so why not run it if you can run it? Now, we also got a new Grade 1, which is basically a retrain of an already existing card, as we have Steel-Blooded Eradicator Shuki, and its skill is, although Rearguard Circle, when your opponent's rearguard is retired by your card effect, this unit gets power plus 3k until the end of turn. I believe Narukami already has the exact same card, but this time it now also has the Eradicator name. So it's probably just to have an Eradicator specific unit with the exact same skill. If it's gonna come up in some way, I'm not sure, but we have at least got that. Now we also got another Grade 2 Eradicator, which is Homing Eradicator Rokushishin, and its ability is Auto Rearguard Circle. When your opponent's rearguard is retired by your card effect, this unit gets power plus 5k until the end of turn. Yes, it's an 8k, but the fact that we now have a Grade 1 as well as a Grade 2 that allows you to do this, you can actually make some significant numbers that can allow you to take advantage of the fact that you can remove your opponent's interceptors. As yes, you can remove them, but if your columns aren't high enough that can beat over those automatic defense power or those defensive triggers, then what's the point? This allows you to actually capitalize on that aspect of Narukami and might actually be a really good staple card for the Eradicators deck, but we have to wait and see how good this would play out. Now we also got another Eradicator support card, which is Eradicator Spark Rain Dragon, and it's got the skill Continuous Rearguard Circle. During your turn, if your Vanguard is an Eradicator, this unit gets power plus 3k. So this is just a generic 12k beater. How good it is, I'm not too sure. It's just a 9k during your opponent's turn and not the 12k. And if you can keep retiring stuff in your opponent's field, then the 8k Grade 2 might actually be better. Although it's a bit more susceptible to lower powered units to get removed from your interceptor. So keep that in mind. Now, of course, the main boss unit that's been revealed today is Eradicator Vowing Sword Dragon. And the reason why I said at the beginning of the video that this is somewhat nostalgic and striking home, this was the first trial deck that I bought or at least played with for Vanguard. So this was my introduction. And keep in mind, I wasn't playing at the time that this set came out. I bought this trial deck while Time Leap was meta. Yes, it's a bit crazy, but I wasn't playing at tournaments. I was just playing at home with friends, and this was all that we had. We had this trial deck, and we had the Dimensional Robo Kote trial deck with, I believe, Kaiser or something like that. So it was basically that we played. Now, its skill is very similar to the original. I think it didn't even change at all, as its skills are Auto and Vanguard Circle, Limit Break 4. When rode upon, your Vanguard gets power plus 10k until the end of turn, and retire one of your opponent's front row rearguard. So you get a free retire while powering up your Vanguard with an additional 10k power. This is a really good break red skill, if I'm gonna be very honest. A free pop and 10k power is a lot of value for nothing. But I also got a second ability which allows you to get value out of this card while you are sitting on it and you don't have Limit Break 4, as it also has Auto and Vanguard Circle. When this unit attacks a Vanguard, it gets power plus 3k until the end of the battle. So it can at least hit even cross-right numbers or just units with higher base power, and if you get a solid booster, it can potentially hit over defensive triggers with ease. And that basically concludes all the new cards that we've got for Vanguard 0 as well as the official TCG. There's one more news that I want to share with you guys for Vanguard 0 on the global side, as we've got the new official event calendar for August, as this is the schedule for this month. As you're going to see, we have two major events happening. We've got the Hot Spring event at the beginning of the month, and at the end we're going to get our second Neo Nectar clan event, which will also bring Musketeers as well as Ouroboros to the game. So if you're interested in those extra events or in a new clan event for Neo Nectar, then keep your gems ready, because they're going to hit your devices very soon. And with that, we also conclude all the information for this Cardfight update. Let me know in the comments down below what you guys think of the potential direction for Luard, as well as the cards for the true ancient dragon archetype for Tachikaze. Are you happy with this new type of playstyle for Tachis? Are you happy with the ancient dragons actually returning to the game? As well as if you are excited for the new cards that are going to hit Vanguard 0 on JP's side, as well as what's going to happen for Global very, very soon. As always, this video has been brought to you by lovely patrons over at patreon.com/VanguardInsider. You guys are amazing. If you do want to support the channel or everything that's happening on the channel, you can simply do that by going down under this video, hitting the subscribe button, hitting the bell button to be updated for future videos, as well as liking this video and potentially sharing it with your card fighting friends. But if you want to help us a little bit more directly, you can go over to patreon.com/VanguardInsider and become a Patreon today. But with that said, I'm Mr. Time Leap, and I see you guys in the next one.